I think we're all still working on busting a myth, which is if the science is strong, the format doesn't matter. But that thinking is outdated because your content can be as good as it comes. But if the format isn't working for your audience, it doesn't really matter. It's like sending the most beautiful letter to a mailbox that no one will ever open.
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, a podcast by MedComms experts. We share medical communications insights and advice from the best and brightest in the industry to find out what they're doing to push our industry forward. Here's your host, Wesley Portegies.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve in medical communications, there are 3 trends that you cannot ignore right now. Today I'm breaking them down for you, what they are, why they matter, and how you can take action. My name is Wesley Portegies. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and founder of MedComms Experts, an agency specializing in effective medical communication strategies. So why this episode? Well, a recent survey, the State of Medical Communications 2025, gathered insights from over 50 medical affairs industry professionals. And it gave us a clear view of where we're headed and where too many teams are still stuck. So here's a quick teaser of what we're going to talk about today. The first trend is on how teams align, or maybe to say misalign, on strategy. The second trend deals with the kind of content that actually gets noticed, used, and remembered. And the third, it's about why so many great resources never reach the people who need them most, and how that is finally starting to change. So let's get into it. So trend number 1 is all about strengthening the strategic alignment across different teams. And this is something I hear a lot right now. It wasn't just in the survey, but most of my conversations, this is something that comes up. So we're all talking about breaking down or connecting silos and building alignment across medical, commercial, global and affiliate teams, or maybe even within medical affairs and across the different functions. And this is not just about collaborating. This is often about co-creating. How do we create shared objectives, shared projects, and shared timelines? And how do we make sure that we work well across the communication objectives and we're all dancing to the same tune, as they say? Well, this is so important because medical affairs on its own is being asked to act as a strategic partner and not just a supporting function. In the industry, we've done a lot of work to earn that place, to earn that seat at the table. And still, as of today, there's a countless number of meetings and white papers and other initiatives that are about the value of medical affairs and claiming a seat at the table. So it's really important that we get good at this collaboration together. Too often, content is still created in isolation. As an agency partner, it's very easy to see that because we are in situations where we actually, can assist our client and maybe clarify like, hey, listen, we got these 2 requests and they're actually for kind of the same thing from 2 different locations. So yeah, we can be helpful shaping that, but it is a good indicator of how the teams on the pharmaceutical company level are sometimes a little bit siloed. When it comes to global to local, or like how global collaborates with affiliates, that's a big theme as well. And if you're a frequent listener of my podcast series, you might have heard the recent episode with Simon Perrieux from BioMérieux, where we spoke about this exact topic. And he actually shared some tips and insights on how that can be changed. But again, it comes down to the same thing. There is a lack of alignment. And if you're in a global function and you create all these beautiful materials, but then the affiliates, for some reason, and it doesn't matter what reason exactly, are not really using it optimally or not using it in the right way, that's a problem, right? Because all your effort and your investment is basically for nothing. So that's why this was coming up as the number 1 strategic priority among medical affairs professionals for 2025. So to recap, when teams are misaligned, you get duplicated work, inconsistent messaging, and content that simply doesn't stick. So we want to avoid that. And we want teams that are aligned really well from a strategic level so we can move faster, get super consistent messaging to the outside world, and content that resonates deeply with healthcare professionals and perhaps also with internal audiences. So maybe a tip that I can give on driving this forward is that for every new initiative that you start, pause 1 second and think about what outcome are we all trying to achieve and what does success look like for each of us, and consider the different functions of your organization or your medical affairs team in that question. And from there, you can build your medical communications plan together and make your agency and internal teams strategic participants. And from there, you can build your medical communications plan together. And I would also definitely recommend to think of your agency as a strategic partner rather than a downstream executor of tasks, because they can be extremely helpful in connecting the silos for you. So the second trend that we're getting into is something that is super close to my heart, and it is about creating innovative content. And this would include interactive and digital assets. This might sound subtle, but it is really changing the game. So MedComms teams and medical affairs teams, we are finally moving beyond the static PDF, or I guess the PowerPoint might be almost a better example. And we're now embracing interactive and digital first content that is built for how healthcare professionals consume information. Short form content that works across different devices, leveraging platforms like third-party platforms. On a recent episode, I spoke with people from Sermo, Kudos, and FakeShare, for instance, and also platforms like Viva that are very important for the digital content ecosystem. So as a result, in our survey, creating innovative digital content was therefore the second highest strategic priority for the year ahead. And modular content was one of the top capabilities that came as a part of that. And I guess, although this is kind of hard to admit, I think we're all still working on busting a myth, which is if the science is strong, the format doesn't matter, right? But that thinking is outdated, because your content can be as good as it comes. But if the format isn't working for your audience, it doesn't really matter. It's like sending the most beautiful letter to a mailbox that no one will ever open. So while scientific rigor is obviously very important, I think that's the baseline of what we expect, right? But the format, the interactivity, and the user experience are really determining that your science gets seen, understood, and remembered. So innovation is not just about fancy animations. You can make a beautiful augmented reality molecule that jumps through hoops of fire. Amazing, right? But it might not really help anything. So sometimes, or I would actually say most of the times, the solutions that you can use to make content more innovative and effective are actually the small and the simple things. It can be as simple as creating an experience that is very intuitive, like creating a deck for MSLs where they can intuitively find the information they would need to show to support their dialogue, rather than being stressed about it, skipping around in a 200 slide deck and trying to find that one slide. Hey, we need your help. The best way to help us grow and reach more medical affairs professionals is to share with your community. If you love our podcast, please hit subscribe, leave us a review, and that way we can keep sharing insights from the best and brightest in the medical communications industry. Let's push our industry forward together. So it's all about usability, adaptability, and scalability. Also, content needs to work across regions. It needs to track engagement, and it needs to be built for personalization from the start. So also here, I want to give you a simple tip. So I would like you to take a high value resource or asset, maybe like a clinical trial summary, and try to think about how you could rebuild this as a modular toolkit. So think about separating the core narrative, then think about what visuals would support this narrative. What could you integrate that would drive interaction, like a quiz or some kind of decision-making tree? What would be useful for certain regions specifically that you could tailor about this particular asset? So this way you can think about it as building blocks rather than the one-size-fits-no-one approach. Try to pilot this, try it out, and then be mindful to track the performance and iterate on what you developed. And I guarantee you it's going to bring you to someplace better than where you are now. And finally, trend number 3, which is about effectively communicating and disseminating resources to affiliates. This came out as a huge topic, not only in our recent survey, but also in many, many other conversations we have had with mainly with our global medical affairs clients. So currently, it looks a little bit like we have this email it over to them and cross your fingers approach, right? That's how we distribute new assets. It's very clear that email is still the main communication channel to do so. Some people indicated using Microsoft Teams. Some are using Viva to a lesser extent. But again, it looks like they're simply not like a very effective approach to share resources with affiliates. And I think that has a lot to do with how we're looking at it, because I think we're approaching this a little bit too practical. We're looking at it as distribution, right? We spend all this time and effort into creating an asset, an information resource, and now it's done. So now we just need to hand it over. But that's not where it stops, because it's not really about distribution. It's more about enablement. For instance, you can make this beautiful resource and send it over to your affiliates. But what if one of those affiliates opens this and says, well, yeah, I'm not really sure if this resonates with our audience, right? And maybe there's nothing wrong with the resource. That's actually quite likely. But maybe it's just because you didn't provide the context on how to use it. So I'm a big fan of providing, I like to call it meta content, that comes with your different resources. And that gives maybe consider it like a mini training. Like, why did we develop this in the first place? What were the requirements? What are we trying to achieve with this resource? How is it being used? With whom is it being used? In what kind of scenario? And what do we expect the outcomes are? That is a completely different way than, hey, here's your new PowerPoint, good luck, right? And of course, I'm exaggerating here, but the survey results speak for itself. There's a problem here, and we definitely need to address that. One way to look at it is that affiliates are not just content recipients, right? They're actually co-creators and strategic allies, but it will only be when we treat them that way, of course. So that is why, I was actually looking at my notes here, 77% of medical affairs professionals are reporting ongoing challenges with affiliate engagement. So there seems to be a lack of alignment, materials that are outdated, and also zero visibility in content use. So I've been working in an affiliate myself in my previous life when I was in the industry. And I remember lively that this wasn't about, the intention to use it. It was often about just the lack of connection with our global counterparts. We didn't understand where they were going with this. So as a result, we just made our own plans. So that's why affiliates so often default to local content and sometimes even outdated guidance, right? It's not because they're ignoring your strategy, but it's because they don't see the strategy that you have behind the assets you create. So in order to fix that, there are 4 different things you can do. So first of all, involve your, at least the most important affiliates or regional heads in planning and the strategy before you even start producing your assets. In practice, this could look like inviting some local MSLs, for instance, to a strategy meeting that is meant to define the approach of your content. Then also make sure that you make it very clear that why we're actually creating the resource. Then find a way how you can track how the resources are shared with affiliates, and then how are affiliates adopting the resource as well. Could be a very easy indicator for you to understand that, okay, if it's underutilized, and not maybe by everyone, but maybe certain countries, there might be a good reason for that. Learning about that reason will give you a way to actually provide more value. And also create a feedback loop. Make sure you open the door for your local colleagues to share their feedback to you, because that is a treasure trove of information and it doesn't come automatically. You need to proactively invite them to provide their feedback, and you also need to show that you're actually listening when they do, right? So it's always good to point out why certain changes are being made, certain decisions are being made. And if you can root that back to the feedback that you got in the first place, that is a great way to show that, their voice matters. To also end this trend with a tip. So for this particular topic, if you're in a global role, maybe think about, did I give my local colleagues a reason to care and some kind of way to contribute to what we're doing? Practical implementation could maybe be to create a short affiliate roundtable pre-launch, right? And even one conversation can turn, maybe some passive participants right now into very proactive partners. You just need to give them a voice. So let's recap what we discussed here today. Trend number 1 is strategic alignment, internal alignment, to be clear. And this is all about breaking down silos and creating shared priorities across functions and regions. Trend number 2, innovative content. So we're going to ditch the static formats, and now we're going to work on modular, digital-first, interactive assets and resources that really spark deep engagement with your audience. And the third one is local affiliate engagement. How do we move from a top-down approach to a two-way collaboration where we work together for the better? So, what do these things have in common? What it has in common is that medical communications is becoming way more strategic. We're far beyond getting our publications in journals and reprint carriers. It's 2025. So if there's one thing to remember from this conversation, it is that it's no longer about just making more content. It is all about producing the right content for the right people in the right way. So now we're at the end of this conversation. I'm really wondering what of this actually hit home for you. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So if this made you pause, if this made you think, please send me a message. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to subscribe. We have a lot of new cool topics coming up very soon. And if you're ready to future-proof your strategy, also check out our Knowledge Hub at our medcoms-expert.com website. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next time.
Transforming Medical Communications is brought to you by MedComms Experts. To find out more about MedComms Experts and how we create some of the most cutting-edge medical communications programs anywhere in the world, visit www.medcoms-experts.com. And then make sure to search for Transforming Medical Communications in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at MedComms Experts, thanks for listening.